All right, so we can get started. Thank you all for coming. This is the fourth session this semester. Today we're going to talk about, let me just move my microphone. Today we're going to talk about Lightboard and applications of Lightboard in distance education. We're going to have two presenters, Catherine Beachy and Dr. Davis. Catherine Beachy is the lead instructor for EKU's adult education program, and you will talk about Lightboard. So they can take over.
Thanks, Nadeem. Do you have a way of accessing the video?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. So what I did was create a video that would act as like a mini lecture video for either an online course, a hybrid course. It could even be used as a standalone option in a face-to-face course. I wanted it to be content-rich. I wanted it to be fun to watch, but I also wanted it to tell a story, because our students oftentimes don't have a lot of background knowledge to plug in this sort of new mathematical knowledge to. But if you tell them the story of the math, right, it's a lot easier for them to recall the concept itself. How I did it was by working with David Smith, who's super cool and awesome. But we had to write an entire script, scene by scene, along with all the scene directions before we ever even began filming. I wanted to know exactly where we were starting, where we were ending, and how we were going to get there. And even before we started filming, after the script was written, we decided to do a run-through of that script just to catch any sort of problem areas, make sure that it would play out the way that it was in my mind. And we did catch some issues. We refined some language. David was absolutely instrumental in that. And he helped me just to clarify my vision as far as what I wanted to do. I explained to him, you know, the things that were sort of happening in my mind, and he helped me translate that into what it would look like in the finished product, which was really cool. Some of the challenges, though, that I faced were writing a script that was concise but thorough. And that took some time. I think I spent one whole day, literally maybe two, at my dining room table while my husband and son got to play during a weekend of sun and fun. And lots of coffee. I think my hair was probably standing on end. I might have lost a little bit of it by pulling. But it was really important to me, and obviously it's important to our students, that their learning experience feels painless, especially when you're talking about mathematics. It's something that most of them will tell you they're pretty much allergic to. And so getting them to see the math the way that I see it and the way that they need to see it was really important. And so being able to do that in a script that's concise was essential. And something else that created kind of a challenge was presenting that information in a way that was attention-grabbing. Last thing you want to do is spend a lot of time and energy creating a learning video and then having folks fall asleep about 20 seconds into it, right? And I also wanted to show that mathematics is absolutely central to the human story, to all of our lives, to where we've come from, where we are right now, and where we're going. So those were the challenges, you know. What I would do differently, if I had to do it over again, and I do have that opportunity to do it over again, is I would spend more time actually mapping out the project itself. I know I talked about mapping it out with David, mapping out myself when I sat and wrote the script, but I think that if I had more time to sort of let it marinate a day or two, a week or two, and then revisit it a few more times, it probably would have come out a little bit smoother. I wouldn't be seeing things when I watch it now, you know, several months later saying, oh, I wish I'd done that differently. I think I would also put together a team of reviewers for the script. That way it wouldn't be so painful for David to sit there and have to comb through all of my stuff. But I could also get feedback right away. So maybe I'd be able to catch some things that I might want to do differently next time. And I would probably spend a little bit more time preparing some of the aspects of it, like the accent that we use for the main historical figure. The guy's Welsh, but it's a really awful English accent because my husband, who did the voice work for Robert Record, could not get the Welsh accent down when I dropped it in his lap the night before. I said, can you do this? Welsh accent is really difficult. So maybe giving him several months of time to prepare, that would be helpful. Okay, so I'm going to showcase a segment of the video now. And then I'm going to explain the processes that we went through to get that video. David, I might need your help getting this pulled up. Do you remember the exact address? You don't? You don't? Let's see here. Let's pull it up from your all's website. How about that? No. So our very first introduction to the equal sign that is when we're in elementary school. So that choice in intro was very intentional. What I wanted to do was sort of ease students' minds right from the get-go, that you're not just watching a segment or a clip on how to do mathematics. We're getting ready to do something fun. And I wanted them to be able to laugh about, many of us share these horrible sort of learning experiences in math, and I wanted all of us to be able to sort of acknowledge that and laugh about it and just relax before we jump straight into the mathematics. Okay, Nadine, you're going to have to help me. How do I get this thing to go play again? When we're in elementary school, and we're first learning addition, typically it goes something like this. What this does, though, is develop the notion to us that the equal sign is some kind of a signifier, a sign that we are to put the answer to a problem that we're working on just to the right of the equal sign, like so. However, that's not quite right. The job of the equal sign is actually to signify to you that the numbers on one side have the same value as the numbers that are on the other side of the equation. It's not literally the same, because obviously 1 plus 1 isn't the same thing as 2, just as 5 plus 5 is not the same thing as 10. But when you combine them into their simplest form, then it becomes the same in value. So as you can see, the equal sign is not just signifying to you where to put your answer to a problem. It's actually kind of telling you that there is a relationship between two different quantities. This relationship is one of equivalence. It means that everything, a mathematical object that's on one side of the equation is the same in value what's on the other side of the equation. The equal sign is just a symbol that means to communicate that idea to each other when we're writing out our math. So David made a really good suggestion at that point. Right after the introduction to the video, he said it's really important that we show you as soon as possible. We want the students to make that human connection with their instructor. And so the Lightboard in this instance was absolutely instrumental to not only being able to show me as soon as possible to the students so they can make that connection, but where I could still convey to them the general idea that we were going to explore in the rest of the video and then later on in the rest of the class. I needed them to be able to actually see what the purpose of the equal sign was while I'm talking to them about it. I wouldn't have been able to do that without the whiteboard.
So this concept, the idea of mathematical equivalence, has been around for a really long time. But the symbol that we know and use today has only been around for about 500 years. In the mid-1500s, a very, very long time ago, in a land far, far away, a man named Robert Record. No, not that guy. This guy. Hello. Yes. Robert Record was busily writing a new math curriculum called The Whetstone of Wit. Why do we start with this? All of that one be tell. A curriculum textbook on what is essentially algebra. Oh, yes. Point. Record was a bit of a rebel during his time. Like many of his chronically contemporaries, Record believed that knowledge should be accessible to folks who weren't trained scholars. Rather than writing his textbooks in Greek or Latin, as was the custom of scholars during that time, he instead chose to write his work in the English and Welsh language, the common tongue, so that the common person could also read them. The idea that common folk should also have access to knowledge was a radical one during this time period. It wasn't popular to believe, let alone support the idea of equality between common folk and the nobility. The nobility believed it would breed feelings of discontent among the coloniers about their lot in life, and that, they argued, would lead to rebellion. During this time, long ago, all books and manuscripts were written by hand. The writing instruments they used were made from quill feathers that they would dip into these ink bottles to sort of load them, if you will, with the ink. Only a very small amount of ink could be held after each dip, and once used, would require the writer to dip yet again in order to continue their writing. So as you can imagine, the process of writing was laborious and tedious. And because of the expense at that time of ink and paper, the time needed to complete a single manuscript, mistakes and wordiness were all costly outcomes to avoid. Robert Record.
So that segment, that's the story part of the math that I was trying to convey to the students. I wanted them to see that these symbols that we use in mathematics, they don't just come out of nowhere. And not only that, but mathematicians aren't so brilliant that they're able to come up with it lickety-split when they need it, and we adopt it and we move on. This is something that develops over time. And I wanted students to be able to see that and be able to connect with that. I figured that if they could see that mathematicians struggle also, their struggles might seem a little bit less, or at least a little bit more normal in their own learning of the concepts themselves. So the reason why I wanted to create this video, well, the reason why I created the video for the online course development class, and the reason why I took that class is because I wanted to be able to create really high quality online material for our students in adult education. That's something that's missing in adult education. And I didn't know where to begin. I wasn't even really sure how to begin thinking about where to begin. And so when I saw that the course was advertised to staff and faculty, I thought, well, heck, let me jump on that train. And it was very intense, 8 weeks, but at the end of it all, I was able to get to a point where I could create a prototype, which is what I consider this video, of the kind of educational content that I want to make and be able to use with my students. It's super important to me that they have access to really high quality content. And the IDC was able to help me figure out how to do that and then actually create this prototype. I also wanted students to see that learning math isn't and shouldn't be a fussy enterprise, right? It shouldn't be something that's stressful or that causes them to sort of avoid completing our degree program, right? And so creating that high quality content is essential to that as well. And I also wanted them to be able to really understand what the concept of equality is. And the reason why is because that's the number one thing that will keep a student from being able to be successful in algebra and with algebraic concepts. If you don't understand the concept of equality, you are not going to do well in even an intro level algebra course. And introductory level algebra is what the adult ed students need to be able to do well in order to pass the GED test. So I wanted to make sure that they knew that as soon as they learned what the idea of equality was, that it would never leave them via the human story. I think that sometimes it's difficult to teach online if you don't have the right tools, including knowing how to go about doing it. So getting back to taking that 8-week-long course, I really feel like I was given the tools, shown how to use them, shown how to understand them, and where to go to access additional tools in order to create high-quality content. So I really do recommend that if you've got the opportunity to take that 8-week online course, that you do so. One of the things that has come of this me taking this class is KET, Kentucky Educational Television, has agreed to pick up helping me create the remaining videos that I want to create for the online class. It's going to be a remedial class, and they like the prototype so well that they're going to help me produce the remaining videos that I need. So I don't know, cool things can happen if you take a class with the Instructional Design Center. So that's what I wanted to share with you all. Lightboard doesn't always have to be just a central feature of the content that you're creating, but it can help you accomplish lots of different learning goals with your students. So thank you for joining me. Yeah. You mean you don't want to hear me talking over here?
Thank you. All right, so the next presenter is Antoinette Davis. And you need have the clicker.
Good afternoon, everybody. Today I'm talking about illuminating math tools because I'm from the math department. When I first found out about this particular idea, I actually found out about it on accident. I was telling Mary about these cool videos that I watched on YouTube, and I said, it's this lady called Math BFF. You have to watch her videos. What is she writing on? And we both looked at it, and she said, I didn't know. And I said, it's got to be something that she's writing on. We found out it was a Lightboard. So I asked Mary, when are we getting one? And when we do, I want to be the first one to use it. As it turns out, Catherine used it, and I've used it as well. It has worked out well in my math courses. The question is, what is the Lightboard? The Lightboard is, for me, it was a casing. It was actually Mary's front door. And this Lightboard was actually utilized to do math concepts. A lot of us feel that we can't use these concepts because they're so expensive. We can't afford them. But actually, we can. Mini lectures. Emphasis on mini. Do not use the Lightboard for 20-minute concepts. Nobody's listening to you after the first 5 minutes. Okay? When I also took the online course development class, we were told 3 to 5 minutes maximum. That's what I use for my videos. Because after those first initial moments, you lose a student. Okay? You can cover a concept in less than 3 minutes if you like. Target fundamental concepts. I use these videos for my 090 and 095 classes in math. I've used it for factoring videos. I've used it for denomination videos because these are short concepts that they can pick up on. Also, a great way to pick your video ideas, think about what you're discussing in your classes. Pre-plan with your instruction designer on what you want to cover. And once you get to that concept, pilot it to your students. Students feel especially special when they feel my teacher made a video just for me. Even though you made it for the whole class, they get excited because you sent it to them. Address common knowledge or skill gaps. Do not introduce a concept based on this is what I want them to learn. Start with some foundational knowledge. With factoring, start with multiplication. You don't have to write out all the multiplication tables, but that's the start of factoring. Skill gaps. Fill in those skill gaps in short ways. You don't have to be extraneous on it. You do have to at least cover it and give them some background information on it. Selection of material for the mini lectures. I selected them based on what we were covering in 090 and 095. I did my videos actually in the summer for my 8-week course, and it goes by very, very fast. Okay? With those classes going by so quickly, these videos help to fill in for those parts where students are not able to be in class for 3 hours. Help students bridge the gap to understanding. Help them to understand that these videos are a supplement to the lecture. So that means they still have to come to class. But these are supplements that they can use when they go home for their homework. It's their way of saying, hey, I didn't have to go on YouTube to get a video. My teacher actually sent me one. Planning. How did I plan this? Mary and I sat down and we actually talked about one initial concept, which was factoring. And once I got to her office, she said, hey, we have the studio for 2 hours. Why don't you pick 2 other concepts? I said, okay, I guess I can do that. So she was actually on her way on vacation and she asked me to write out a script. And I said, well, I've never written a script before, but I can assume that it shouldn't be that difficult, just like writing a lesson plan. I wrote out a short script for each of the 3 topics, no more than a page. You don't have to fill up the whole page, but at least a page. So that way you can actually say, hey, this is what I'm going to talk about, because your script is what you're going to look at when you're making these videos. Sent it to Mary. Her and I made some changes, some revisions, and as you can see, we ended up with cue cards. Actual cue cards. These are the cue cards that I use for these videos. Mary so graciously held every single one of these for each and every video. So looking through the Lightboard, I'm not looking at just anything. I'm actually looking at her. Okay? A couple of those videos we had to start over because I was just looking at her. So this is what she was holding. This is what I started with. In any particular concept that you do, start with what they know. They know multiplication. I actually wrote that on the board, as you'll see in just a moment. After starting with what they know, then tell them, what do you want them to know? This is not actually written on the Lightboard. This was sent to Sam, and he actually put in a clip. This is right after the title that students can see this is why we're solving linear equations. So this doesn't have to be written on the Lightboard. You can send this to Sam, and he can actually put that in for you. After you've told them what they need to know, how they will know it, then you start with the problem. In starting with these problems, you do have to go slow, but not too slow, because remember, you've already introduced their foundational knowledge. Now you can keep moving. And I think I had about 5 of these for each particular topic. After that, I wrapped up. Because remember, I started with what they know, I gave them some new information, and then I wrapped up. The official wrap-up was their homework. Okay? So I could use these as supplements if I had to be absent. I could pre-plan to come in and do a video and pilot it. Okay? Simplifying radicals. This is the first video that I did, and I'll give you a clip of it so that you can see how it actually came together.
Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Antoinette Davis, and I am a lecturer here in the Mathematics and Statistics Department at EKU. And today we're doing a video on simplifying radicals. What does it mean to simplify radicals? Why do we really need perfect squares? Well, that's what we'll start. The perfect squares are 1 square is 1 times 1, which is 1. 2 squares is 4. 3 squares is 9. 4 squares is 16, and 5 squares is 25. So we'll go all the way up to 10. 6 squares is 36. 7 squares is 49. 8 squares is 64. So if we look at square roots with that 2 out front, we can say the square root of 5 squared. In square roots, you can actually cancel the square root with the actual exponent to say that the square root of 25 is 5. Let's try it again with a different number. The square root of 36. The square root of 36 correlates with 6 squared equals 36. So the square root of 36 is the equivalent of the square root of 6 squared. If we cancel where we can, the square root of 6 squared is just 6. Okay? Now, we'll look at some problems that have variables in addition to the number. We treat them the same way. So the square root of 25 x squared. The square root of 25 is, of course, the 5 squared in place of 25, so we have 5 squared times x squared. If we look at the square term outside, we cancel where we can. We cancel the 2 and the square root. We cancel the subsequent 2 inside of the square root. Our final answer is 5 times x or 5x.
We'll stop the video there. As you can see with this particular presentation, I kept on the board what they actually needed for this lecture. Okay? It's easier to keep it on the board, or you can actually send that to Sam for your particular area, and he will put that on the side for you. Okay? Whatever they're using for this video, leave it on the side. That way you already have it, you can just go straight through the problems. It makes your time much faster. And as you can see, the video, it didn't go extremely slow. It went at an instructional pace. Okay? You don't have to put every single thing on the board, but for these particular problems, I kept it to a minimum. I knew they knew their multiplication tables, but I wanted to make sure. That's why I left it on the side. In the studio, choose a day that doesn't have back-to-back appointments. So that means don't choose a day that only has an hour. Okay? Choose a day that has at least 2 hours. This way you're able to come in, get your cue cards. If you choose to use a teleprompter, you're welcome to do that as well. Make sure that's available before you schedule your time. And also, when you schedule your time, please make that time. There are other people who may want to come into the studio and use it as much as you do. Plan your presentation ahead of time. And as you can see in the video, I wore a pink shirt. I wore a shirt that I knew would show up on camera. Okay? Also, relax. I like the idea of taking pictures because I'm a social media person. So I look at it as I'm talking to all these strangers. And I'm recording a video that they can use. So make sure that when you do it in enough time in advance so that you can get it done. Because this is not an instant process. Even though you go into the studio and record it, there's still at least a week turnaround time for editing. Allow that at least. Okay? It's not just a day, it's at least a week because they're editing other different videos as well. Create and plan to build your concepts. Build your concepts based on what you're covering in your class. You don't have to do a video on every single concept. Some concepts can be presented together, such as this. Factoring and difference of squares went hand in hand. So Mary and I said, hey, why don't we just do a video all together? This is what it looks like.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Davis again. We're doing a lesson on today on factoring and difference of squares. Of course, when we're working with difference of squares, we at least need to know what squares look like. So, 1 square is 1 times 1, which is 1. 2 squares is 4. 3 squares is 9. 4 squares is 16. 5 squares is 25. So we go all the way up to 10. 36. 7 squared is 49. 8 squared is 64. 9 squared is 81. And of course, 10 squared is just 100. Let's begin with the first problem. X squared plus 14x plus 49. Let's look at 49 in terms of perfect squares. 49 is one of our perfect squares. Okay? So what we're looking at is, since 49 is a perfect square of 7 squares, we need to look even deeper in order to solve these types of problems. What 2 numbers added together will give us 14? So this is what it is. 7 is 49. Is 7 plus 7 14? Yes, it is. So the answer to the problem is x plus 7 times x plus 7 is the equivalent to x squared plus 14x plus 49. If you'd like to make sure, feel free to FOIL it back out.
This is what was sent to Sam, and he actually put it in there in the video. So you don't have to write this out on your own.
X times x is x squared. X times 7 is 7x. 7 times x is 7x. And 7 times 7 is 49. If you add the two middle terms, you get 14x. So we did the problem for it. Next problem. X squared plus 15x plus 56. Now in this case, we can see that 56 is not a perfect square. So we won't use it, right? But 56, let's look at the factors of 56. What are the factors of 56? Well, let's write them out. The factors of 56 are 1 and 56, 2 and 28, 4 and 14, and 7 and 3. With the B sets of numbers, adds up to give you 15 in the middle. Well, 1 plus 56 is 57. That won't work. 2 plus 28 is 30. That won't work either. 4 plus 14 is 18, which means we're more than likely getting closer to 15, and we have found out 15. So, 7 plus 8 equals 15. But does 7 times 8 equal 56? It does. Right.
And we can stop it there. You notice that when you do videos like this, you have to be very careful on where you write. Some of the videos had to be redone a few times because I was actually standing where the writing is. Even though the students know you're there, you have to make sure they can see you in a separate place from your writing. Okay? And it's difficult to do that because when you're on camera, you're moving from left to right. Okay? So Sam had to tell me for a couple times, just don't go out of this area. So that way I only have this area to work in. Evergreen topics. What does that mean? That means these are topics that are simple in nature that can be explained in as little time as possible. You do not want to put a 10-minute concept on a light board. Why? You're going to spend most of your time erasing. Okay? When it comes to erasing, you lose the concept of students learning. Pick a small concept where it's something that maybe you can put information on the side and just work with the middle. Okay? These do not have to be extremely difficult, but they do need to be concepts that students can pick up on almost immediately. Fundamentals to progress in the field. You can be the forerunner in your field by doing these topics. Why? Because in most cases, a lot of fields don't have these topics. We have videos. We have plenty of math videos that you can see on YouTube. We don't have a lot of Lightboard videos. Okay? But when you think about it, you can be the person who brings this particular technology into your particular field of study. A lot of people are nervous about working with this Lightboard. The time that I was actually in the studio, there were some instructional designers who were actually peeking around the door. And I was thinking, am I here at the wrong time? Is somebody else supposed to be here? And as it turns out, they were peeking around the corner to find out, how does this actually work? Okay? There's a lot of people who are interested in what you're doing. And new technology is the wave of the future. You could be the wave of the future for your department. This is the last video that I did on solving linear equations. Remember, all of this was done in a 2-hour time frame. Okay?
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Davis, and today we're going to be talking about solving linear equations. The goal in these problems is to separate the variable from the numbers so that we can solve for the variable. Each problem is totally different within its own perspective. The first problem we're going to talk about is 2x plus 2 equals 16. Well, you notice we have numbers, we have variables. The first thing we need to do is to get rid of the positive sign, we use subtraction from both sides.
Cancel where we can. That's 2 minus 2 is just 2. Bring down 2 less. Equals 16 minus 2 is just 14. Now we have separated our variable from our number. So in order to solve for x, we divide by 2 on both sides. Cancel where we can. That's 2 divided by 2 is just 1. In this case, x equals 7. If you chose to do it, check that. Just to make sure you have the right answer, we go back to the original equation, 2x. In this case, we found x to be 7. Add 2. Does that equal 16? 2 times 7 is 14. 14 plus 2 is 16. So we've done it correct. The next problem that we do is 3 plus 3 equals 14. Same concept, just a different process. So 3x plus 3 equals 14. To get rid of this positive 3, we subtract 3 from both sides. When we do that, we cancel what we can. 3 minus 3 is just 0. So we get rid of it. Bring down 3x. And 14 minus 3 is just 11. Now, we separated our variables and numbers. Now we just have to solve for x. So we divide by 3 on both sides. 3 divided by 3 is just 1. So in this case, x is 11 over 3. Again, if we wanted to check it, we go back to the original problem. 3 times 11 over 3 plus 3 should be 14. 3 times 11 over 3, if we cancel the 3, we're left with 11 plus 3 equals 14. So we get that problem correct as well. The last problem.
As you can see, it's easy to run out of room, okay? The video and actually Sam moved down a little bit at the bottom, very bottom of it because I was getting very, very close to the bottom, okay? Be mindful of that because your students may not be able to see that, okay? Based on how they bring it up, if they bring it up on iPad or on a regular computer, they may or may not be able to see it. So as much as possible, if you can maybe move over and say do that step, that last step at the bottom, they'll be able to see it better. Technologies to integrate within your presentation. The Lightboard is a standalone for the most part. You can use your Lightboard within your lectures as well as wikis, blogs, discussion boards. In a lot of online classes, which I teach, we normally have discussion boards as a way to communicate with students. The Lightboard can be used as a supplement to that. Interactive videos. I've used Prezis, I've used VoiceThreads, and students tend to think that you take more time and interest in them when you use more tools to reach them, especially your online students who may not ever see you in life, okay? They get a chance to connect with their teacher on how do you look? What do you sound like? Okay, so you're making an intentional reasoning on why you want to connect with them in this course. Now, an interactive quiz. Mary actually created this. So, the course and module blank determine what blank are needed. What do you think? And you can use the 2 words that are listed below. What do you think fits there? Instructional material and objective. Okay. Thank you. Oh, looks like we didn't get it correct. Choose whether the statement is true or false. Students prefer long videos with multiple topics of instruction. False. 5 minutes. All right, we got that one correct. The Lightboard was developed at EKU to make many lectures available to online students or capture 60-minute lectures. First one. All right, we got that one correct as well. I think this is the last one. Which of the following indicate a way video can enhance mathematics understanding? Students create a video to demonstrate understanding of a concept. the instructor creates a video to help students struggling with the concept, or the instructor links to a video created by another instructor. Just hearing another explanation helps some students. All of them, that's not a choice. Oh, all right, you want to do all three? We can do all three. See what happens. All right, very good. Yes, it does.
Don't let it run.
So based on this quiz, the passing score is 80% based on 4 questions. So we got 75, so we were close enough. So you can use quizzes like this at the end of your videos to assess, 1, whether the students watched it, and 2, whether they mastered the concept. So thank you, Dave, for helping out with the video, and Sam, it was really an exciting experience. So I'm looking forward to making more videos, and I'm thankful for Mary for setting all this up. I know she had to leave out a little early, but does anybody have any questions? Yes, indeed.
I have a question from Jennifer. In addition to the fact that Lightboard adds personalization factors, right? The personalization that screencasting doesn't necessarily provide. Did you discover any advantages of Lightboard over screencasting?
I did. It was more, because it was more personal, I got a chance to add in concepts that I could use. I got a chance to add my touch onto certain concepts that students would see as, oh, we've seen that before. Say, for example, 1 times 1, 2 times 2. We've seen that before. But I got a chance through Lightboard to make it even larger. Okay, I was able to use those concepts, insert them into problems, and then make them even shorter. Because you notice on these particular problems, I got to do 2 to 3 problems. Whereas with Screencast-O-Matic, yes, you have a script. Yes, you do have to do it in a certain format, but it's not necessarily recorded per se. It's something that you put together, but I think because students are used to seeing videos all the time online, that's why I use the Lightboard. That's why they preferred it over Screencast. Yes.
For your lectures that you do online, do you do a combination of Lightboard and other types of curriculum delivery?
Yes.
And are all of your online lectures for a pure online course, are they all 5 minutes or less?
All of them are 5 minutes or less. All of them are not Lightboard. I tend to use Lightboard with Camtasia, but they're not all under 5 minutes, but they're close enough. 5, maybe 6.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
So these videos that you make in the online environment, do you use them as resources or use that in your lectures in your live environment?
I do. I do. Because in the classes, online and in person, we're normally in the same area at the same time. So when I send it out to my online students, I send it to my traditional students, or I'll show it to traditional students in class.
Have you heard, what have you heard from live students about that?
What I've heard from live students is, 1, it cuts down on me having to do the talking, because a lot of my lectures, I could go like maybe an hour and a half. But for Lightboard concepts, I have to keep it short. And they prefer the shorter videos, because most times by the time they get halfway through the video, they're already on a side of paper starting their homework. You had a question?
Do you have to write backwards in order to walk away with it? I'm not sure for that.
It looks that way. It looks that way. When I start on these videos, you see it on the right-hand side. I actually started on this side. So it's actually a concept of it flipping over. Yeah, Sam flipped it over somehow. I do not know how.
This is like post-production.
What do you use with practice?
So at the end of the day, I mean, that's great tools, but at the end of the day, how many people are involved in this process and how much? Like, you said it's 5 minutes and you did it in 2 hours.
Mhm.
The whole thing.
The whole thing that's involved, me, the instructional designer, Dave, Sam, that's 4 people, not to mention the person we have to contact to actually schedule it. So it's about 5 people involved.
And the time overall,
The time overall,
editing
I don't do the editing. I'm actually there to do just the videos. The cue cards are pre-made, but I would say 2 hours in the event that, just like I did, I'm standing in front of the words. Some of those we had to redo. So that 2 hours will give you a chance to go in and do your first versions if you look at the videos and say, you know what, let me try it again, you have time to do it again. Any other questions? Questions for Catherine?
I have a question. When you read it, you said you wrote a script or you didn't write a script?
Yes. I wrote an initial paper script, and then I sent it to Mary, and she put it on these cue cards. So that way it's large enough where when I'm looking through the light board, it looks like I'm looking at the camera. I'm actually looking at her because she's holding these. So all of these were 3 different scripts, and they're in big print so that you can see them. And some of them are front and back. Okay? So these were made for each and every presentation. That way I didn't have to memorize, hey, this is what I'm going to talk about. Because sometimes you forget, especially when you're on camera.
Can they be loaded on telephone?
Sure.
I did it, yeah, yeah.
Right. And use a marker that's dark, so that way you can look through the board and actually see it. Okay? If this was in pink writing, it'd be definitely hard for me to pick up on it. I'd probably be running into the light board to actually see it. Okay? And make sure it's large enough so you can look at it. Other questions? Yes?
Is there a way to mark on a board where you can write, where you couldn't write?
It was taped off when I did it. If it looked like this, Sam put a tape here, that's where I couldn't write. But even though I couldn't write here, which is at the end of the camera, I couldn't write between this particular area because the camera's pointed here, not necessarily here. Okay, so they tape it off for you. Oh yeah. I would have been all over the place, but they taped it off for me. Because with math, I get excited. You can tell I was here, I was there, I was in the middle. I just love math, so they tape it off for you. Other questions? Well, thank you for coming to Catherine and my presentation. We appreciate your support and look forward to more videos. Thank you.
Thank you both.